Hey guys, it's Coach Reba here. I am just getting you started on your first flipped classroom video. So you are going to need your math journal out. We are going to look at how to set up these pages when you're at home watching these videos on your own. So first things first, we are going to look at how my page is set up. Now on the screen, you'll see that I just took a still shot of what my notes page looks like. And the only thing it's missing is down here at the bottom in this area. You'll notice there's empty space for our examples because we're going to go ahead and do those on another page so that you can add those in down there. But everything else on this page should look exactly like my page. Obviously, your handwriting and things like that aren't going to look alike, but you should have everything written down that I have written down. So at the top up here, you're going to notice how we set this up is we have done Cornell notes. Now, I know some of you have heard of Cornell notes in your elementary schools. Some of you, this might be new to you. If you're new to Cornell notes, that's fine. All it means is we are setting up this T-looking thing, and there's already a red line right down here on this side. So all you're doing really is going darker over that line. So now that we have this T, we're going to put our title. My title up here is written, so you're just going to write that title. It is Lesson 1-1, Compare and Order Whole Numbers and Decimals. Now, I like to abbreviate a lot, so like this hashtag, as you guys would call it, that's also my number sign. So if you see an abbreviation like that, it's just whole numbers and decimals. And then over here in this top left part, I have the page number, page 2. So make sure you're numbering your pages, and then you're going to go later on and you're going to go put this in your table of contents in the front. So you're going to say page 2, lesson 1-1. Okay. Then the next thing down here underneath, you'll see this L.T over here. I'm going to do this in a different color. My L.T over here, that I wrote underneath there, if you can read it, it says learning target. I'm not always going to write out learning target. I'm going to abbreviate it just to save us some time. But our learning target is our goal. Like, what do we have to know by the end of this math lesson? So sometimes there's 1, 2, 3. This time there are 2. So our first goal over here is we are going to use inequalities to compare decimals. And like if you ever can't read a word, like how this decimal is kind of weird over here, sometimes the pictures don't take very well, just listen to what I'm saying. If you're watching the video, you can pause and go back and say, oh, what was that word? I can't even read that. So just go back. Number 2 says order a set of decimals. So we're going to do a couple of different things when we're looking at like a set of numbers. On the left-hand side, that's usually like what we're talking about over here on the right side. So then my next one right here, it says inequalities on the left side, which means that over here on the right side, my chunk of notes, that is what my inequalities are. So it's my less than and greater than sign. You guys should recognize those from 5th grade. So you're going to go ahead and put those over there. Now, as I'm going through these, I know I might be going fast for how you are writing right now. That is the beauty of these videos. If you guys are watching these at home and you're like, whoa, Ms. Reba is going so fast, press pause, finish what I've already talked about, get caught up with the video, and then press play again. You don't just want to be copying stuff down and I'm 3 steps down, because then you're not really understanding the lesson. And then tomorrow when you come back to do the homework, you're not going to really understand. So pause it if you're behind, then press play when you're caught up. No big deal. So now over here I'm on to place values. Our place values are just the place that the number holds. So this number that I have right here is 256.089. Another way to say that is 256 and 89 thousandths. And I say thousandths because that's the last place there is the thousandths place. That 9 is in the thousandths, so that makes that 89 thousandths. So you can say it either way, but then also you want to make sure that you write what each one is. My hundreds, my tens, my ones, my tenths, my hundredths, and my thousandths. Make sure we label all those because that's going to be really important when we go to order numbers that have decimals, okay? Our last thing that we're going to do before we go to some examples over here is we're going to go through the steps. Now you'll notice when I do the examples with you in a second, I'm going to go through these exact 3 steps over and over and over again. Sometimes when we get problems in front of us, people want to skip the steps and they want to just say, oh, this one's bigger, this one's smaller. And then they make mistakes. So make sure you are writing these steps down and that every time you know all 3 steps. Number 1, line up numbers vertically. And we're going to line them up by the decimal. Number 2, we're going to add zeros as a placeholder. And I'll show you exactly what that means if you don't understand what that means right now. And then number 3, start on the left. So we're going to work left to right to compare the numbers. So pause the video right now if you are not caught up with me and get those written out, and then press play when you are ready to do some examples, because I'm going to do a couple of examples on my next page where you won't see these notes anymore. First page in this empty space at the bottom. Now at this point I have a couple of more examples to do, so if you have ran out of space, you can go on to the next page and number at page number 3. If you still have space down here at the bottom, if you still have space after writing that example that we just did, that's fine. Keep adding it in the bottom. If not, go ahead and number your next page number, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever it is. And I'm going to add another example. Okay, now we are going to go through a couple of examples on this page. So again, this is on a separate page for me, but in yours it can fit right next to your little example part on your Cornell notes. If it goes over, then it goes over to the next page, and that is totally fine. So our first numbers, we are going to say that the question gave us, let's see here. The question gave us 1.58. It gave us 0.9, and it gave us 1.444. Now pay really close attention, because it's not just going to give you 3 numbers. The question might say, order these from least to greatest, or order these from greatest to least. So you have to pay very, very close attention to which one it's asking. We're going to say that this one is asking for least to greatest. So we want our smallest one first and our biggest one last. So now we're looking back at our steps 1, 2, and 3. The first step says that we have to align our numbers vertically. Now vertically means that we're making them go up and down. Right now they're side to side, they're horizontal. So we're going to take our numbers and write them all up and down like this. We're going to just drag those 2 numbers. We're going to pull them and write them right underneath that 1.444. So according to decimal, which means that I'm going to put my 1.58. Notice my decimals are lined up and my numbers are very, very nice and neat, because if they get messy, it gets hard. Next, we have our 0.9. all lined up vertically. So now we're moving to step number 2. Step number 2 says we have to fill in our blank spaces, our empty spots, with zeros to hold our place value. So I'm going to do this in a different color, but you'll just do it in your pencil. I am going to go and fill zeros wherever I have empty spaces. So I should have all 4 of these zeros filled in. That way there's no empty spaces in the whole thing. It's nice and pretty. Then step number 3 said we have to start and move from left to right, just like we would be reading in a book, left to right, so that we can order them. So I'm going to look at my first column first. So my first place over here is our ones place. We have these 3 numbers. So we look and we say, okay, this one's a 1, and a 0. That 0 means that this bottom number has to be my smallest because it's smaller than the other two right off the bat. So that means if I'm ordering them from least to greatest, I can already take this last number and I'm going to put that one first. It's my smallest. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to put 0.9. And then I can cross out this one because now I know that's my smallest one. I'm done with that one. And we've used that and we've used that. So now we can go to the next place value. So now we're going to our tenths place. So I'm looking at this 4 and this 5. Again, we know that a 4 is smaller than a 5. So I know that my next smallest after 0.9 has to be my 1.444 because my 4 is smaller than my 5. So I'm going to go and write that down here. Take my red, I'm going to cross out this one because we know that's the next smallest. And then by process of elimination, we know that the only one left, which is my biggest number now, is going to be my 1.58 or 1 58 hundredths. So now that we have this answer, there are a couple things that we do in 6th grade always. The first thing is that we always box our answer. That means I am not just going to leave this right here. I'm going to put a big box around it. That way, if my teacher is looking at it or I'm looking back at it, I don't look at all this scribble scrabble over the whole paper. I know what my final answer is. If you'll notice, I kind of made this question a little bit tricky because some students might look at this question and they would say 1.444 has the most numbers in it. So I think that one has to be the biggest. But if you look at our final answer, how long it is or how many numbers it has in it does not mean that that one is the biggest or that that one is the smallest. So you have to do our steps over here. That is part of your grade in 6th grade, is being able to show that you did all the steps. It's not just filling in and picking an answer. It's doing all of the steps. How did you get that answer? So now we're going to do one more example problem, and this will be our last one here on our notes. This one, we are pretending that this question is asking you to fill in an inequality. So it might look something like this. We have 11.3. Whoops, scoot that back up. Ah, my 3 looks special. Let's erase that. That's going to bother me. Erase. Okay, so we have 11.3 and we have 11.33. And sometimes they will put a little thing in the middle like fill in the inequality, and it'll be like a box, and you're supposed to put whether it is less than, greater than, or equal to if they're the same. So you have to figure out which one goes in there. Now, a lot of kids at this point would say, oh my gosh, 11.33, that's the longer one. It has the most numbers. I'm just going to make that one the biggest. But we would not get credit in 6th grade math for just filling in an answer because we have not done all of the steps. So I have to take my numbers. It doesn't matter which way you go. I'm going to take this one down here and I'm going to put it underneath. I drew that a little bit too long. I'm going to put that one underneath because our first step says that we need to align our numbers vertically. So I'm going to take that one down here. I'm going to write my 11 3/10 under here. I've lined up all my numbers. That's step number 1. Step number 2, we fill in what? Fill in your zeros and your empty spaces. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and write in my 0 because that's my empty space. Now, just like we're reading a book, we're going to start on the left side and we're going to figure out which ones can we eliminate to see which number is our biggest number. So I'm going to start out looking at my tens place over here, which is these two ones. They are both ones. Whenever they are the same number and that doesn't help us, we just cross them out and we move to the next one. So that doesn't help me. I don't know which one's bigger because they're both the same there. So I cross them out and I move to the next one. So now I move over. Oh my gosh, they're the same again. We have two ones. That does not help me figure out which one's bigger or smaller. So cross out and move to the next one. I'm moving over to our 10th place, which is these threes. Two threes does not tell me which one's bigger or smaller, so I cross them out again. That doesn't help me. Now we're on our last place value here, which is our 100th place, and we have a 3 and we have a 0. Now, we are smart and we know that 3 is bigger than 0, so that means my 11.33 has to be the bigger one. So somehow I'm going to show myself that this one has to be bigger because my 3 is bigger than my 0. So now I'm going to go down here and I have to fill in my inequality. You guys learned, I'm sure in 5th grade, something about the alligator and how the alligator always eats the bigger number. If that helps you, use it. If it doesn't, then don't. But how we fill in which one over here is that the open side faces the biggest number. So since 11.33 is bigger, and this one is my smaller one, I have to point the smaller end to that side and the bigger side to the bigger number. So I filled in my inequality. I showed all 3 steps over on the side, and I would be absolutely golden on this problem. Okay, now your teacher, whether it be Mr. Gaines or myself, might go over a few example problems right now. This is all you would need in your journal. Any other problems you could write in there if they were helpful to you and you like writing them in there. But the rest of them, we are just going to go over maybe some tricky problems or other things, but just make sure that you at least have these 2 problems in your notebook so you can go back and look at them and use them when you are doing your homework problems. Have fun!